Good morning, everyone. This is Michael Berardi, welcoming you all from Limassol, Cyprus to Jumpstart Monday. It's our episode every Monday where we share a book that has touched us, an online course that has helped us improve our skills, and a proverb that has resonated with us. We're broadcasting live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And if you're here, just drop me a note to see who's here first. And in just a little while, we're going to have one of my favorite episodes of this year because we're talking about training. We got a lot of messages from internal trainers, external trainers, people who just stand up on the podium to speak to their teams, internal teams or external teams or at conferences. And they all asked me the same question. How can we make it more interesting? How can we capture our audience attention? How can we drive through knowledge and make it stick? How can we bring positive change? Well, this episode is dedicated to that. And let's see who's here just before I go on. George, always first. Good morning. Have a great week. Savia is here. Hello, Savia. And my friend and mentor, trainer as well, Lahat Zvi, a great sales trainer, one of the best 100 sales trainers in the world from Israel, is watching us. Guys, I want to try one test first because we had some technical problems the other day. Can you please let me know if you can hear me now that I disable the camera? Now that I disable the camera, can you still hear me? Just drop me a yes if you can, so we don't run into the exact same technical problems that we had last week. I'm waiting for one yes before I move on to our winner of our previous episode and get into a very interesting topic. Excellent, great. Thank you, Savia. Thank you, Stelios. Great to have you here. Okay, who's our winner from the previous episode? Who shared the episode and won a yearly subscription to the Stand Up, Stand Out online course on public speaking, very relevant to what we're talking today. It is Mr. Apostolos Papadopoulos, the winner. Mr. Papadopoulos, please do get in touch with me at michael@michaelberardi.com to tell you how to claim your prize. So guys, let's move on and let's be brief because we have a lot of things to cover. I'm going to be giving you 6.5 ways to make your trainings more interesting, to drive knowledge through, and to capture your audience's attention, make them leaning forward. So let's start with number one. Number one is all about listening. And as an example, I'm going to be citing the American P&I Protection Indemnity. That's my customers in New York City. And I want to talk about what happened there and how I made it interesting and what got me back in 2017 was the first time, 2018, and then back in 2020 via webinar because of the pandemic. So let's see what happened. Number one, the first thing you need to do is sit down and listen to the management. As you can see here, this is a photo in New York City. I'm listening to all three vested parties. That's the people who are in charge of the American P&I Club. The first thing you need to do is to listen in like a good student, to ask clarifying questions to the management in order to recognize and to realize what it is exactly that they need you for. So as I said in previous episode, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should use them in that proportion. But listening to the management, which is the number one, is not enough. So number two is we also need to bridge the gap and also understand if there is a gap between the management and the employees. As you can see here, let me go here to the American P&I Club. I sat down with the employees at the American P&I Club and asked for their feedback too. Sometimes there's a great gap. I'm not saying in this case there was a gap, but sometimes there is a great gap. So you need to sit with them and try to understand their needs, wants, what's keeping them up at night. And if it's a very big company and you cannot interview everyone, you take a percentage of the people within that company from all layers of the hierarchy and you interview them. So you have what the management has said and what the employees have said. So you are starting to form a clearer picture on where to march. just before you prepare your timetable, which is number 4, you need to do something else in order to have captivating seminars that will capture the attention, that will drive knowledge through. Number 3, my dear friends, is what you now see on your screen. You need to understand your audience. And there are 6 burning questions you should ask, not only yourself before preparing for that keynote, if it's an internal speech, an internal seminar, or external for that matter, but you also need to ask the management. And the questions are the following. Let's go to the questions. This is an example from my Address for Success speaking in public workshop. Some of you have attended it. The topic here is how to hire and keep talents in a work environment that has changed culture. What is your audience like? I'm giving you the audience for this particular example. It's the HR and management who are coming for this particular topic. So, second question is, why is your audience at your presentation? Most probably because the HR management are at an age, the HR and the management in that particular company were approximately from 40 years old to 60 years old. And because our topic was how to hire and keep talent, I presumed and I asked, and that was the case, they were losing a lot of talent. What was the reason they were losing a lot of talent? The reason they were losing a lot of talent, and that's the reason they were there for this presentation, was because they didn't know exactly how to deal with millennials. And according to statistics, 70% of the workforce and of managements today are comprised of millennials, and in 2025 that will go up to 85% of the workforce. And those millennials, which are approximately 84% of the managers in the workforce, they have to manage 5 generations, one below them, Generation Z, and they have to manage 3 above them. So if you don't understand millennials, and they will comprise the vast majority of your audience, then you will keep on losing them. So let's go back to our question. So why is the audience at your presentation? They were there because they wanted to understand how to come across and how to them, and also to keep them. How can you solve their problem? In this case, I opted to bring in case studies of other companies that I have helped and how we've done it. And everyone has a problem. Everyone goes to bed with a thorn in their back. Everyone has a problem that keeps them up. In this case, it was how to keep these people. And they didn't know ways to go about it. What do you want them to do? Well, what I wanted the HR and the management to do is to give millennials what they prize the most, and that's ownership. Not in terms of shares, but in terms of ownership of projects. Give them ownership. Tell them what you want them to do and let them do it, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity. They are a bright generation, and I cannot put them all in the same box, and that generation needs freedom. So in this case, I wanted to drive the management and the HR to understand that they needed to let them be a bit free and decide. So let's go back to our questions. 5th question, how might they resist? How people like to be in their comfort zone. They like the status quo. So in this case, because the HR and the management were from an older generation, they were used to doing things in the way they used to do them. And if the wheel is not broken, why fix it? But they were losing talent, especially with the pandemic coming on. Some people wanted to work from home. So we needed to really understand our workforce need and bring examples. So they were resisting, but at the end, but they were losing also people. So we needed to bring examples with the 6th question, which is, how can you best reach them? And how can you best reach people, my dear friends, which is the next point I'm going to be talking about, is by doing 3 things. Here they are. Some people prefer to hear things. Some people prefer to see things, and some people prefer to do things in order to understand them. And we experience the world, as you know quite well, through our senses. So let me give you one example and make it vivid of how these three things differ: hearing, seeing, and doing. So let me switch off my camera and tell you how to do a paper airplane. So how do you do a paper airplane? All right, you take an 8.5 by 14 by 11 piece of paper, that's an A4 paper. You fold it in half lengthwise. Then you hold the paper airplane in the center. Then you fold the two edges and you make a small triangle, and so on and so on. So now you're trying to make sense and you're trying to bring an image into your mind of how to make an aeroplane. But it's difficult because you have to envision it. So now let's go on and see how we can do a paper airplane. So let me switch cameras. So we take an A4, let's see it together. We take an A4 paper, we fold it in half. Then we do a small triangle on top and another triangle on the other side. Then we take this edge, we bring it here. We fold it, we make a sharp edge so it can fly. It's the same, it needs to be aerodynamic, and we do the same on the opposite side. Then we fold it in the middle. We take one of the sides and we fold it to the side and the other. And there you go, we have our aeroplane. So now let's go and do it together so we can do it much better. Are you ready, guys? Let's do it together. First, take an A4 paper. Now, divide it in half. Is that clear? Great. Let me turn the camera down now. So now, make a small triangle, as you can see here. Make another triangle on the other side. Let's do it together. Yes. Take this edge here. Take this edge here. Let me show you again. Take this edge here and bring it over here. We bring it down. We take the edge and we bring it over here. We do the exact same thing with the other side. Then we fold it in half. We take one of the wings. We fold it to make a razor sharp edge. Then the other one to make another razor sharp edge. We lift it up. And here it goes. That's our plane. Let me revert to this. So, some people prefer to see, some people prefer to hear, and some people prefer to do. In your training sessions, you should cater for all three. But I suggest, and that's the reason why in Germany and Luxembourg, they have a lot of students who get out of university and find work, is because they get them to do things, and in the last year they send them to companies like Volkswagen and the rest to work with their hands and try things out. So in most of your trainings, I suggest get people to do things, and one of the reasons why gamification is so important and it helps is because it gets people to move around, as we see here. I'll show you the example with the American P&I. As soon as I got them in New York to move around, they started learning more things, and we started to bring the message through. So we also share a proverb every episode, and the proverb that I will share here, it fits like a glove for what we were talking just now. It comes from Benjamin Franklin, who said, "Tell me and I forget. Show me, teach me, and I might remember, but involve me and I will learn." So in your training sessions, involve your audience. So now let's go to the fifth one. The fifth one is all about the timetable. Timetables are very important because if to fail to prepare is to prepare to fail. Let me bring the example of the American P&I once again. I always like to be very, very prepared. So as soon as I do the first one, the second one, I talk to the management, I talk to the percentage of the employees, I find the gap, and then I ask the 6 questions in order to understand and start to devise my plan of action in training sessions or keynotes. Then it is very important to have a timetable. Let's go and have a look at the timetable. It's from New York City, as you can see on the top, in 2018. I write everything down. In this particular example, I started by giving each and every person at the American P&I Club a lemon as soon as I entered in. It was on differentiation, our topic. So I asked them to get hold of their lemon, become friends with their lemon, and then I went around with a black bag and I collected all lemons. I put all the lemons on a side table and I asked them, come and find your lemon. Some people could find it because they made a note on it. Some people could find it because they were very observant, but some people couldn't. And I said differentiation is the exact same thing when serving your customers. They need to remember you. You need to remember them. You need to make notes because you will forget at the end of the day. And in this case, I wrote everything down. As you can see from my second page, I know exactly how long the cube exercise, which is an exercise that I learned from my friend Lahatzvi, who's live on our call now, will last. I know when it's the coffee break. I even write down, if you see there at 11, until 11:15, the password of the Mentimeter survey that I've done. In case something goes wrong, I will have the password not only written on the cloud, up in the sky, but I will have it written down. Because to fail to prepare is to prepare to fail. I might not go according to plan, but I want to have my plan with me. So if you want to become more, if you want to draw your audience attention, if you want to drive knowledge through, you need to be very organized, very meticulous in how you move forward by doing things that some people who like to hear will participate, some people like to see, but most importantly, people who like to do with gamification, as I said earlier. So now we go to perhaps the most important thing of all the tips that I will share today. This is my own personal STIR method, and I want to share it with you. If you want to become a more convincing speaker, presenter, either in internal seminars or external seminars, and I will get to your chat because I see some of you have questions. If you want to become a more convincing, if you want to make your audience more gullible, you need to follow the STIR method. Let me show you exactly what the STIR method is all about. STIR, it's like stirring your soup. You stir, like our grandmother used to stir our soup. So the STIR method says the following. Most speakers make statements. They make statements and then they expect their audience to be gullible. They expect their audience to follow them. They expect their audience to say, yes, that's exactly how I feel. No, it's not only enough to make a statement, but you have to go move on to the T and the I. Think it through and then illustrate it and then restate your original statement. If you manage to do this for each of your points, and I will bring an example in just a little while, then you become a more convincing and a more captivating speaker. Why do we need the T and the I? Think through, let's say, for example, I say that a bomb has fallen and 1,000 people in Cambodia lost their lives, and I will bring a solid example in a while. Yes, you think it through, it feels bad, but if you illustrate it with a single example, if you zoom in with a single example and you say that little Johnny, who's 6 years old, lost his legs, his mother died and his father died, and his little sister is injured and fighting for her life, then it becomes more emotional. People will lean in forward because it's a single example, like the Titanic. If they started showing us the Titanic at 40 minutes in the movie, we wouldn't have felt so connected with the two actors. So think through and illustrate can be one thing, but I prefer to have them as two. So let me give you an example of a real statement that I've made. That was in Tallinn, Estonia, when I addressed the Ericsson team, their CEO, and 300 other people. And that was a statement that I made. I think it's a statement that you will agree with. But still, if you don't illustrate and if you don't think through and illustrate your statement, you're not a convincing and a captivating speaker. So now let's go and see the statement that I've done. I've said in 2016, I said, the companies that are going to survive are those that build trustworthy relationships with their customers. If you ask me, I agree with it because I said it anyway. But if we don't think it through and illustrate it, we're not becoming convincing. So how did I think it through? What was the main example that I gave, the more general example? I said that events of the past, corporate scandals, you remember with the emission scandals of Volkswagen, bankruptcies like Enron, or the recession, have greatly damaged trust in professional relationships. And I continue to say that in a very transparent, regulated, and technologically advanced world, reliability and trustworthiness should be the backbone of any ambitious company. In other words, in this very transparent, technologically advanced, and regulated world, we're going to be found out. That's exactly what happened to Mr. Silouris, who was in charge of a member of parliament in Cyprus. There was a hidden camera and they saw everything that was happening. We are going to be found out in this world if we are not trustworthy. So let's move on to the illustration part. I want an example that drives in. So for this example, for this particular case, I used Daniel Kahneman, the Israeli-American Nobel Prize winner in 2002. Daniel Kahneman said, people would rather do business with a person they like and trust rather than someone they don't, even if that likable person is offering a lower quality product or service at a higher price. So in other words, people would like to do business with you even if you have a lower quality, not a lot, but a lower quality product at a little bit of a higher price, because it's all based on trust. And think about it. If you trust people, you will do business with them, even if there is a minute price difference. So now that I've said my statement, I thought it through, and I illustrated, I come back and I restate my original statement. Look at the second paragraph, which says, for example, so I'm restating exactly what I said at the beginning. Companies across the globe are dealing with the most informed, the most knowledgeable, and the most demanding customer or customers of all time. Building trust is of more value than ever before. I wanted Ericsson to lean into my speech and understand that it's all about building trust. How to build trust, how to increase trust and lower the tension. That was my speech all about. I could have said that trust is very important in professional relationships, but if I didn't go through the STAR method, I wouldn't have made them lean in. And if you want to make your audience lean in, become more interested, and you become more interesting as a speaker, as a trainer, internal or external, on giving a speech at a conference or just speaking to your team sitting down, you need to use the STAR method. So I can send you an example of the STAR method. That's the exact same one I have in the course Stand Up, Stand Out. And here it is. If you're giving a 5-minute presentation, you only need to make one point. So you write down your point you want to make, you think of your statement, think through, illustrate it, and restate it. What are you going to say? So you need research here. You can use metaphors, you can use analogies, you can use stories to illustrate this. If you have a 10-minute presentation, I suggest you do 2 or 3 stars. If you have a 30-minute presentation like I have now, you can use 5 points to illustrate them. But always, always use the STAR method. State it, think it through, illustrate it with an example if you can, and restate it. You need to do your push-ups. You need to do your research. So let's go to the 6th and final one, and then I'll recap. The 6th and final one is make it fun. If you can make them laugh, you can make them learn. How will you make people laugh? First and foremost, watch stand-up comedy. My friend Dr. Savas Trijas, he goes on to Netflix on a weekly basis and watch stand-up comedy. Watch a stand-up comedy. That's one of the ways to improve your humor. But also make notes. of something that you find funny. This is my own book, Michael Virati, Inspiration and Ideas. If I hear someone who's funny, if I see something that's funny, if I hear a joke and I want to incorporate it into my training sessions at a particular point in my timetable, I'll do it. But there is a saying in English, pale ink is more retentive than the most retentive of memories. Let me repeat that. Pale ink is more retentive than the most retentive of memories. If you don't note it down, you will forget. So to recap, number one, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. When you go and meet with a customer for the first time, you don't need to convince them. You don't need to speak a lot. You need to speak less. Try to understand their needs and concerns, because most likely you're talking to the management or to the HR. But that's not enough. The puzzle is not completed. By the way, you should ask clarifying questions. It's not completed if you don't meet also with the employees. If they said a very big company, get a percentage of the employees to interview like I did with the American P&I Club. If it's a smaller company of 10, 20 people, you can interview everyone. Then, remember the 6 questions. That's the 6 questions you should ask yourself, but you should also ask the management and in certain cases, the employees. You can also do your research and find out about the 6 questions. Think, use your intuition to understand what's keeping them up at night. Most companies now, they might be kept up at night thinking, how will I bring everyone back? Will I be able to work with flexi workers, some working from home and some with a hybrid model? You can also find out the concerns by thinking and by asking. Then, some people prefer to hear, some people prefer to see, and some people prefer to do. I suggest you do all 3, but because we perceive the world through our senses, get people to do things. Once they try, they learn more. That's what my experience has shown me. To fail to prepare is to prepare to fail, so have a timetable ready. You might go astray. Your plans, when they hit the ground, they might change, but at least you have your timetable. The STAR method, do not only make statements. Think them through, illustrate them, and then restate them. And last but not least, make it funny. And just before I see your comments, let's see the book that I'm suggesting. And the book that I'm suggesting is the following. It is called Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. She's a psychologist. It's the book that all the big tech companies are using, from Microsoft to Apple. And it talks about a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset says, that's the card I was dealt in life. I cannot do anything about it. I'm that person. The growth mindset says, let's see how we can make it better. Let's see how can we improve. And the reason I suggested this book for today is because I want each and every one of you to have the growth mindset when you get into your training sessions. How can I make my training session better? How can I improve it? How can I drive knowledge through and make a positive and lasting change in my organization? So that's it from me. Let's go and see your chats, and let's see who's here. Peace Mentor, Philly, how are you doing? Great book. You read it? I'm so happy. Sotia Christou, highly engaged employees make customer experience. Disengaged employees break it. Correct. R. Clark. My friend Thalis Panagiris is here. As usual, outstanding. Michael, thank you for sharing so many valuable tips with us. Thank you, Thalis. George Kiprianou, examples on the aspect of your interests, another important way to make your presentation more impressive. Correct. Great proverb, says Gada. My friend Gada is here, staying up. Alisa Costa, hola, muy bien, ¿cómo estás? Alexandros Probabas, Simon Sinek has a really nice video on millennials microbiology. I've seen it. For anyone who wants to have a look, I'm a millennial and can relate to nearly everything he says. I've seen that video. I highly suggest it. Dimitris Truthu, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dimitris. How are you doing? Greece is here. Kostas Michalopoulos. Hello, Kostas. Elada Palmiri, my classmate. Good morning, everyone. George Kiprianou, how you doing, my friend? NutriChef, that's a book you should read, written by my friend George Kiprianou. And give one of my book, NutriChef, to the best nutrition book in the world, present to your participants. Yes, George. Okay, I'll give it. I'll give 2 presents for the next time. So send me one and I'll give it as a present. Okay, great. So guys, thank you very, very much for being here. If anyone wants to send me a message directly, please do so. If you want to follow Michael Virati on YouTube and get our latest videos and be informed about everything that's coming up, please follow us. Thank you very much. Have a productive week ahead and a great month as well. Bye-bye.